if you really want to be an actor, and I'm not talking about just playing small roles, like getting co-star roles or guest star roles, although it's important for that too. But if you are approaching acting as an art, something that you're going to have to get used to is being uncomfortable. It's not that we want to display discomfort to the audience necessarily. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to create an uncomfortable experience for the people that we're sharing our art with. What we are trying to do, though, is create an environment where anything could happen, where change could happen, because you're approaching what you're doing with a vulnerability that allows change to happen. Because that's what vulnerability means. It is about being accessible, right? That you're allowing what's going on in the moment to actually influence you. And there's the real possibility, both of danger and of hope. There's the possibility of change, that when you enter a scene, whether it's on stage or whether it's in the cinema, there's this possibility that there's a real palpable, hey, something active is going on here. And it's not the standard, choose an action sort of actory thing that I'm talking about. When we coach in the classroom, I put people in situations that they may consider uncomfortable, but they're only uncomfortable because I'm suddenly asking them to consider things, to allow their mind to go places that they usually protect it from. And the classroom creates a safe place for that. If you're walking into a classroom every week and you're sort of just working on performance and working on things like showing up, which is great, and having an action and an objective, that's all great. But it's going to be you're not going to grow as an artist unless something accidental happens to you besides that. I try and create an environment where that accident can happen while we're in the room. For example, a lot of this gets down to sexuality because it is such a dangerous place for a lot of people. We get into these modes about sexuality and about gender and about whatever related to that. And we've decided this is what we are. And any confusion that we have, or any, we'll use the word perversions that we have, we push down and we keep in our private places. You can't keep things in private places if you're going to be an actor. Or you've got to be making in front of the camera the conscious decision to be keeping something in a private place, right? So that we see that, this person's hiding something there. This gets explored a lot in movies when we talk about magic, when we get into horror films and we get films that involve magic, because magic, almost in every case, is simply a placeholder for generally a girl coming into her womanhood. Magic is about women moving from the place of girlhood, of being taken care of, into discovering their expressive power and then learning how to use that in the world. And every magic story is a little bit different in that every woman is different in how they approach this power, how they use the power, and then ultimately what they do with it. It sometimes can be about a man discovering his power, but men's power comes from a different place that doesn't always work in horror films. I'll give you two examples. The Shining, right? Everybody knows the movie The Shining. So Jack Torrance goes to the hotel, the demons overtake him, he almost kills his family, and the kid has this magic that is a shine. And on the surface, it would seem that that's what the movie's about, but that's, in my opinion anyway, not really what the movie's about. The essence of The Shining is it's the story of a woman, Wendy, the mother, who has never been taught properly to use her magic as a woman. The essential feminine magic, the essential feminine power, is expression. These are psychological things. So we all have pieces of the feminine and the masculine in us. We tend to project onto women in our society that female characteristic, which is expression. And on men, they have their own. And for men, it is containment. Right? Women are expressive, females, the feminine power is expressive, and the male power is one of containment. It doesn't mean that males can't be expressive, and it doesn't mean that females can't contain, but that's essentially how it breaks down. I'll get more into containment in a moment. But on the expressive side, in The Shining, Wendy has never learned to use her expressiveness. She has instead subjected herself to the male power in Jack of not just his containment, which he has some of. He is constantly trying to contain himself and contain the situation, but really Jack is expressing his feminine expressiveness. He's got too much of the feminine in him and not enough of the masculine, which is his ultimate downfall. And the story of The Shining is about Wendy becoming a woman and finally not relying on the magic, the female essence in the men around her, or their minimal male essence that they have, but finally using her own powers of expression to save her child. So it's really her story. It's the story of Wendy maturing into her womanhood and being able to protect her child. There's a sequel to The Shining, which is called Dr. Sleep. And Dr. Sleep does a really fantastic subversive thing. Is again, on the surface of it, it looks like this is all about Danny and his shining. Danny is the kid from the original movie who's now grown up. And the movie, Dr. Sleep, looks like it's about him learning to the responsibilities of his power and the balance between the expressive and the containment in him. And they do this really amazing thing, which I've never seen in a movie before in Dr. Sleep, is they actually show his containment. What Danny does as a man is he's been taught by Dick, the caretaker who was part of the saving team in the first movie. He's been taught to take his demons and actually put them in physical boxes in his mind. And we see them get closed into these physical boxes. This is the male power of containment taken to its extreme. But again, Dr. Sleep isn't really about Danny and Danny's magic and Danny's power. It's about this young girl, Abra, who starts out, and we actually see her start out as a young girl and move into maturity. She goes from being, 4 years old to being 13 or 14, something like that. And she has this power of expression. She has the shining, and it uses it to manipulate the world around her. And she ends up getting into trouble with these demons that actually eat this expression. And what's beautiful about the way they do it in Dr. Sleep is the way she ends up maturing into her power is she has to team up with Danny and utilize both her expression and his containment in order to defeat the enemy. When she expresses, and a lot of her expression is she projects her physical body into different places, it doesn't quite work until Danny comes into the picture with his boxes. And the initial plan is to capture the enemy in one of the boxes, to just use the male power to contain this evil essence on the outside. But ultimately, Danny has to merge his power with the girl's expression, and he has to allow what he's containing in these boxes, the things that he's been holding on to, he has to allow them to come out. And ultimately, it does defeat the evil, but it also kills him. Because that is the essence of the male power. The male containment power is it's not control and it's not locking things away completely, right? As I said, that's an extreme. It is holding things until the right time. It's maintaining the environment within which the female's expression can happen. And, this is something that we try and get to. It is one of the core elements that we get to when I'm talking to actors, because each of us has this magic in us as a human being. And as we grow up, we're often left without mentors to help us figure out how to use the power properly. And we're very often, especially nowadays, left without partners who can temper our power, who can match our power, who can bring unity to the power. And I love this not only in films, but for human beings walking around, because we live stressful lives where we are constantly trying to do things without asking for help. And we're often not offering our help to other people, at least in a way that's not controlling. And by working in the classroom on these ideas of expression and containment and what it means to you, because there's no one answer on how to properly mature into these powers. Every individual has a different answer for it. And I think that's what people go to see when they're going to the movies or the cinema. And I think it applies to other arts as well. But especially when you're going to the cinema, you're going to witness the experiment of an individual, two individuals really, the actor and the character, figuring out what they're going to do with this power, realizing they have the power, watching them struggle with it as we do, and then watching them come to a conclusion through the assistance of everybody around them on what that's going to mean for them in their lives. I struggle with this myself all of the time. I have, like so many people, an imbalance that I'm not aware of both my masculine and feminine psyches inside me, this expression side and the containment side. Each of them is overdeveloped and underdeveloped in very specific ways. And for most of my life, I tried to barrel through this sort of thing alone. And I found acting, and acting really helped me to learn to get a grip on this. But even more than acting, being of service to other people who were learning to manage their power, who were learning to live within their power, who were learning to use their power for their good and for the good of the world. Through that service is where I really started to make discoveries about myself and figure out who I was in the world and what my powers were, how my containment was going to work, and how I could make it work for people around me.